the silence they leave behind isn't empty. It's heavy. It has weight, texture, temperature. You feel it in your ribs when you wake up and reach for your phone. You feel it in the way your breath catches at exactly 3:17 a.m., when the house is dead and the screen glows like a confession. They told you they moved on. They said it casually, almost politely, as if handing you a receipt for something you never asked to buy. You nodded. You smiled. You played the part of the person who understands. But understanding doesn't stop the nervous system from trembling. Understanding doesn't quiet the amygdala when it screams that you were the problem. You replay conversations. You dissect glances. You measure your worth against their absence. And somewhere in the quiet, you begin to believe the lie they sold you. That love is something you earn by bleeding quietly. It isn't. And here is the truth that will either break you open or set you free. You are not mourning them. You are mourning the version of yourself that believed you had to shrink to be kept. You are addicted to the chase because your nervous system mistakes pursuit for safety. Every unanswered text, every delayed reply, every polite withdrawal triggers a cortisol spike that feels exactly like longing. Your brain confuses anxiety for intimacy. It's not love keeping you up at 3:17 a.m. It's a dysregulated nervous system begging for closure it will never get from someone who doesn't know how to give it. You keep waiting for them to finally see you, but the real question is why you still believe your visibility depends on their attention. Avoidant attachment isn't a personality flaw. It's a survival architecture. Somewhere along the line, their nervous system learned that closeness equals danger. Not metaphorically, physiologically. When intimacy rises, their amygdala doesn't recognize it as connection. It reads it as threat. Cortisol floods. Heart rate climbs. The vagus nerve shuts down. And in that split second, the only way out is detachment. They don't walk away because you weren't enough. They pull back because the emotional current short-circuited their capacity to regulate. They didn't stop caring. They drowned in the feeling and chose the only lifeboat they knew how to steer. Distance. Deactivation. A polite, practiced indifference that looks like freedom but is actually exhaustion. They convince themselves they're fine because the alternative is admitting they're terrified. You keep trying to fix the distance with more of yourself. More words, more reassurance, more patience. You think love is a bridge you build alone, but bridges require two shores. When you keep extending yourself into the void, you don't create connection. You create a mirror. They don't see devotion. They see demand. And the avoidant nervous system only knows one response to demand: retreat. The harder you lean in, the faster they step back. It's not cruelty, it's biology. Their dopamine pathways don't reward proximity, they reward relief. The moment the emotional pressure lifts, their nervous system resets. And that's when the mask slips. That's when 3:17 a.m. finds them too. There is a moment, quiet and unannounced, when the architecture cracks. It usually happens in the dark, when the day's distractions fade, when the phone is face down, but the mind won't shut off. They scroll past old photos. They hesitate. They type a sentence. Delete it. Type another. The chest tightens. Not from sadness, from recognition. They realize the silence they cultivated is no longer a sanctuary. It's a vacuum. And vacuums pull. They start remembering the warmth they called suffocating. They remember the way you listened, the way you stayed, the way you offered presence and they offered performance. The avoidant mind doesn't process loss in real time. It processes it in fragments, delayed, deferred, buried until the nervous system finally catches up to the heart. That's when the chasing begins. Not with words, with thoughts. With sudden, inexplicable longing that feels like gravity reversing. This is where you either repeat the cycle or rewrite it. The core concept you must internalize is non-reactivity. Not indifference, not games, non-reactivity. It's the deliberate, conscious choice to stop feeding the dynamic, to stop orbiting a planet that only spins when you're looking. When you remove your attention, you remove their anchor to the old pattern. The avoidant nervous system is calibrated to predict your response. It expects you to reach out, to explain, to prove, to wait. When you don't, the prediction fails. The brain panics. Dopamine, starved of its usual withdrawal reward, starts hunting for the source. And suddenly, the person who left becomes the person searching. They replay your silence. They wonder what changed. They feel the absence like a physical weight. Not because you're punishing them, because you're finally honoring yourself. Picture them now, lying awake. The ceiling familiar. The room too quiet. They tell themselves they're over it, but their hands keep finding your name. They open old messages, not to reply, just to feel the echo. They remember the exact tone of your voice when you said you'd be there. They realize they didn't lose you to someone else. They lost you to their own fear. And fear, once named, becomes unbearable. They start noticing the gaps in their current life, the conversations that feel surface level, the connections that demand nothing and give less. They feel the phantom limb of your presence. It's not nostalgia. It's nervous system recalibration. Their body remembers the safety you offered. Their mind is just catching up. That's when the obsession begins. Not loud, not dramatic. Quiet. Relentless. They start wondering what you're doing, who you're with, if you've healed, if you've forgotten, if you've moved on. The irony is almost cruel. They spent months practicing detachment. Now they're drowning in the very thing they ran from, missing you. But here is the warning you must carve into your bones. Do not confuse their panic with permanence. Do not mistake a midnight scroll for a changed heart. The avoidant nervous system doesn't transform because it misses you. It transforms because it finally meets a boundary it cannot cross. When they reach out, they will not come back as the person you knew. They will come back as the person testing the water. They will offer breadcrumbs, vague messages, sudden check-ins, carefully calibrated proximity designed to see if you'll drop your guard. They want to know if the old door still opens, if you'll still bend, if you'll still prove your love by tolerating their inconsistency. You cannot reward that pattern, not even once. The moment you reopen the door without requiring structural change, you teach them that your silence was temporary, that your worth is negotiable, that your peace is on loan. And the cycle resets, faster, deeper, more exhausting. You are not a waiting room. You are not a rehabilitation center for someone else's fear. Your nervous system deserves regulation, not repeated activation. Your heart deserves consistency, not crisis. Your mind deserves clarity, not confusion. The power shift doesn't happen when they finally admit they were wrong. It happens when you stop needing them to. Non-reactivity isn't about making them chase you. It's about making yourself untouchable to the old dynamic. It's about stepping out of the orbit entirely. Not to punish, to preserve. When you do that, something irreversible occurs. You stop measuring your value by their presence. You start measuring it by your own alignment. And alignment is magnetic. It doesn't beg, it attracts. It doesn't explain, it demonstrates. It doesn't wait, it moves forward. The avoidant who finally feels the weight of 3:17 a.m. is not the same person who left you. They are the person who survived their own defense mechanisms long enough to feel the cost. But survival isn't enough. Transformation is. And transformation doesn't happen in the dark. It happens in the light of someone who refuses to dim themselves to make another comfortable. You become that light not by trying to fix them, by fixing your relationship with yourself. You regulate your own nervous system. You sit with the discomfort of not knowing. You allow the silence to exist without filling it with your own desperation. You stop translating their absence as your inadequacy. You start recognizing it as their limitation. And limitation is not your responsibility to solve. This is where identity shifts from wounded to sovereign. You stop asking if they'll come back. You start asking what you're building while they figure themselves out. You stop tracking their digital footprints. You start mapping your own. You replace the question, "Do they miss me?" with, "Do I miss the version of myself that tolerated less?" The answer will always be the same. You don't miss them. You miss the illusion that love requires suffering. You miss the fantasy that patience earns devotion. You miss the safety of having a familiar pain to hold on to instead of facing the unknown of your own worth. But the unknown is where you live now. And it's quieter than you think. It's steadier. It doesn't spike at 3:17 a.m. It rests. It breathes. It knows you no longer need to be chosen to be whole. They will keep pretending they've moved on. That's what the architecture demands. Performance over presence. Distance over depth. But pretense is fragile. It cracks under the weight of honest reflection. It shatters when the nervous system finally admits what the mind refused. That running didn't save them. It only delayed the reckoning. And reckoning always comes. Not as a dramatic apology. As a quiet realization that they pushed away the one thing they couldn't replicate. Your consistency. Your clarity. Your refusal to play the game of emotional scarcity. You didn't lose them. You outgrew the dynamic that required you to lose yourself. That's not tragedy. That's evolution. When they finally feel the full weight of what they walked away from, it won't be because you chased. It will be because you didn't. Your silence became the mirror they couldn't avoid. Your peace became the standard they couldn't match. Your absence became the teacher they didn't know they needed. And you? You stopped translating their withdrawal into your failure. You started recognizing it as their boundary. You respected it. Not for them, for you. Because boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're doors to keep yourself in. You stay. You rebuild. You regulate. You choose the nervous system state that doesn't keep you awake at 3:17 a.m. wondering if you're enough. You become enough by refusing to prove it. The world will tell you to fight for love, to pursue, to convince, to hold on tighter. The nervous system tells you the opposite. Safety isn't found in pursuit. It's found in presence. In the ability to sit with what is without forcing it to be what it isn't. In the courage to let go of what refuses to meet you halfway. in the quiet power of knowing that your worth doesn't fluctuate with someone else's capacity. You are not defined by who stays. You are defined by what you tolerate. And tolerance is the currency of the wounded. Sovereignty is the currency of the healed. You've already paid in full. Now collect. Let them pretend. Let them scroll. Let them type and delete. Let them feel the sudden, unexplained tightness in their chest when a song reminds them of you. Let them wrestle with the ghost of their own deactivation. You don't need to witness it. You don't need to validate it. You don't need to be the person who fixes the very fear they used to leave you. You are done being the rehearsal space for someone else's emotional readiness. You are the destination now. Not because you arrived first, because you stopped waiting for permission to move forward. The avoidant doesn't heal in the arms of the person they ran from. They heal in the mirror of the person who refused to shrink. And you are that mirror. Not by design, by necessity. You became untouchable, not by building walls, by removing hooks. You stopped offering your nervous system as a landing pad for their avoidance. You stopped mistaking their retreat for your rejection. You stopped believing that love requires erosion. And in that stopping, you found the beginning. The quiet, unshakable beginning of a life where 3:17 a.m. is just a time, not a trigger, not a test, not a tomb for unanswered questions. It's dark. It's quiet. And you are finally asleep through it. Not because they came back, because you came home. To yourself. To your worth, to the unbreakable truth that you were never the problem. You were just the person brave enough to stop pretending otherwise.